The Wholehearted Men Show. Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show.
You're listening to Sonic on Wholehearted.
Sydney Kasanda was born April 5th of 1967 and was divorced in 2013. He has 2 sons and 3 grandchildren. He worked for Zanaco, Citibank, Standard Chartered, Industrial Credit Company at EcoBank until January 2016. His highest corporate position was Resident Vice President at Citibank, and he earned this title based on diligence and recognition. Since 2016, he became a freelance book editor while he was bedridden. He has since published 9 Zambian authors. In October of 2019, he's developed gangrene from 19 years of pain as a result of cancer, which was deep vein thrombosis, DVT, that blocked the main veins in his legs. He had emergency surgery and lost his right leg. 7 days later, he lost his left leg and officially became an above-knee bilateral amputee. It's been a year now, and from his recent visit with the doctor, he's been advised that he needs further surgery if he's ever to walk on prosthesis. He has chosen to weigh his options and see what the future holds. He's currently working on establishing a foundation for persons with disabilities for their inclusion in the socio-economic sector, and I believe that has just come through. The primary driver to achieve this is the prototype of an organic farm he is developing that will be disability accessible and easily replicated as a social enterprise. He's also taking subjects for his grade 12 exam so that he can enroll for a general degree with the University of Zambia in 2022. In the meantime, he continues to edit manuscripts as his first passion. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Wholehearted Men Show with your host, Sonic Karuza, and I am here with Sydney Kasanda, and you probably heard his bio as we were talking, as the show started, but I have Sydney here for a particular reason. As I have been navigating this road in the Wholehearted Men Show, one of the things that I keep kind of harping on is authenticity. And for some time now, a few years, Sydney has been sharing his journey. And many of you that may not know anything about his journey are going to learn about his journey and some of the amazing stuff. But he is actually the catalyst and the inspiration for this series that I wanted to put together, which is a series on ordinary people who have some extraordinary stories. And Sydney is one of those people that I think has an extraordinary story that I think should be shared with the world. And I've been encouraging him to write his book. I don't know where he is with that. We'll find out in a little bit. But for the purposes of this show, I'm going to kind of lay back and we're just going to walk with Sydney through this amazing story of his. And Sydney, welcome to the show. Fill in any blanks that may not have been filled in on your bio if you want before we dive right in. Okay?
Well, I think you've covered quite a lot of it.
All right. So I guess that's my cue to say, okay, I don't have to go backwards. I can go forward, huh?
Yes.
But before we do any of the forward movement, let's go back to the story. So you lost both of your legs. I'm just going to jump right into it. You lost both your legs, and I'm using the word lost, right? I'm using the word lost, but I think you have another word because you lost them through somewhat of a choice, right? And I'm just using the word choice because I kind of know the background of the story and I don't want. So why don't you walk us through where this started. And for our viewers, I'm going to be sharing pictures and things that Sydney has given me permission to share. So if you are squeamish, or if you're a person that has an issue with looking at pictures that might be, they might be a shock to you, I suggest you be forewarned about the fact that we are actually going to be sharing some of Sydney's pre-decision photos, and some of the post-decision photos. Okay, but all yours, Sydney. Why don't you walk us through the beginning? How did this all start?
Well, thank you for having me on your show. I must add that this is the first time in my life that I've ever been on a show, been on TV, been on anything. But the whole journey actually started in 1999, I think. Yeah, 1999. One of my legs swelled up. I thought it was a shoe that I was wearing. I took it off. When I tried to put the shoe back on, and it wouldn't get back on. And I went to see a doctor, and without mincing his words, unfortunately, he just told me, "You've got cancer." Well, I didn't know how to deal with it then. And I went into confusion for 2 weeks. I didn't leave the house because, as far as I was concerned, cancer meant death. Then I went back to see him, and then for years I started now going to Zimbabwe, South Africa, because at the time in Zambia we didn't have the cancer centers we do now. So every 6 weeks I used to go to Zimbabwe for radiotherapy. But that just made things worse. And then I went to South Africa for what I thought was a second opinion. And when I got there, I was fine. I was walking and went to see the doctors. And when they diagnosed me, there were 6 doctors sitting there. And again, not missing their words, he just told me I had 2 weeks to live.
Wow.
So I told them, so I said, okay, 2 weeks. What do we do in 2 weeks? They said, if we do chemotherapy, you'll live for 1 week. If we do radiotherapy, you'll live for a month. If we do both, you'll live for a week. I said, okay. So the decision was whether I wanted to live for a week or whether I wanted to live for a month.
Wow. Now
So
hold up,
I decided.
hold up. This is new. This is new information to me, because I didn't have. Here's you dropping another bomb that I had no information. That is just new information. Now, okay, keep going. Keep going. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, nobody has that information except a few. Anyway, so I made the decision that I wanted to live for another month because I had things that I needed to sort out before I died. So we started the radiotherapy, and it was 12 days of radiotherapy. But then it didn't make any sense to me because I didn't even think it would be anything. I had gone through radiotherapy before in Zimbabwe. But then this time I thought, what could be new? I had the first session. I was all okay. I had the second session. I was still fine. Third day, all the side effects started kicking in. The first one being depression. So I went through the depressive state, and then went through the blistering stage. And because at the time it was in October, I was in South Africa, and the rainy season was just starting, and it was getting cold. So whenever I covered myself with a blanket or was close to a heater, my legs would just flare up in blisters. So the only way I could move, even get to the bathroom, was to throw a towel on the floor and throw myself onto the floor and crawl to the bathroom. And because I couldn't let any water get to my legs, the only way I could get water onto my body was to run a very shallow bath, then slide in backwards
Oh, wow.
so that I have my legs out of the bath and I have my body in the water, because that's the only way I could feel fresh. Otherwise, I wouldn't bath. So after 12 days, everything was just going south, because then the vomiting starts, because anything that I tried, anything that I smelled would make me vomit, especially strong smells like cabbage, egg, bacon. At
Right.
some point, even water was smelling. And because I was in so much pain, they gave me morphine. Now, morphine has a side effect of constipation. So I was drinking close to 20 liters of water a day. And then I just saw things were just going south. I just said I couldn't take it anymore. So I told the doctor I wanted to go back home. I wanted to go back to Zambia, or come back to Zambia.
Now, can I just interrupt you for a second, because we're talking about taking a bath and having to slide in backwards. I'm assuming you didn't have anybody there to help and take care of you either, right? So you were
No,
literally
I didn't.
you were going through this and trying to manage this by yourself.
Yes, I was.
Okay. All right. Keep going, my brother.
So when I asked the doctor, it was when I told the doctor I wanted to come back to Zambia. He said I couldn't. I said, but then what was the point? Because I was going to die anyway. Why put my family back in Zambia through the cost of transporting my body if I can fly with a ticket that I already have and then just die in Zambia? Finally, he agreed. But then the only way I could fly was to wrap the lower part of my body, or wrap my legs in glad wrap. Otherwise, if I didn't, the moment the aircraft took off, because of compression, the blisters would start bursting.
Wow.
So I needed to
Wow,
protect
wow.
yeah. So that's what I did. I wrapped myself in glad wrap, got to the airport, got onto the plane, and I could feel them bursting in the plastic, but then there was nothing I could do. When I got to Zambia, everybody got off the plane. I was the last one to be taken off. I got home. Basically, I was in bed and just waiting. But then what happened was, because I'd gotten so sick that I couldn't eat anything. I could only drink. I was drinking lots and lots and lots of water. And the constipation was just getting worse and worse. So I remember it was a Wednesday. And that was in November. And that was in November 2000. My son got into my room, my eldest son. I've got two sons. One is now 33, and the younger one is 30. At the time, the older one was 12 or 13, I think. So he got into my room and said, "Morning, Dad. I'll see you when I get back from school." And he dashed out before I could say anything. But then I knew that was the day I was supposed to die.
Wow.
So he left, went to school. And just then I could feel life getting out of me, because my stomach was bloated, everything. I called my helper. He came in, he just looked at me. I saw tears in his eyes, and he walked out. Then something told me, just go to the bathroom. I went to the bathroom, and basically that's how the constipation ended. And now I'm going back to my bed, and I'm thinking, God, I'm dying now. But then I promised my son that I would see him after school.
Mm.
So now I had to will myself to wait for him to come back. And he was only coming back at 3 o'clock or at 3 p.m. And I waited and I waited. And basically, let me say that is how I survived. My son saved my life.
Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. You kept it in your mind that you wanted to see your son? Were you
Yes.
at that moment saying, I want to at least be able to say goodbye? Or more
Yes.
so just, I want to see him?
It wasn't, I don't think it was so much about wanting to see him or wanting to say goodbye. It was fulfilling a promise I made that I would see him when he comes back from school.
Wow. Wow.
So it was about him coming back from school, finding me, and then I can die.
Okay. Okay. Now, was it normal for him to come in and say, hey, Dad, and just leave? Or would you know what I'm saying? When you say, I'm off to school without you answering, or was there something different about this experience?
There's something different about this experience because usually he had 3 or 4 things to say and leave, but that day he didn't. That day he didn't.
Have you ever spoken with him about that?
No.
You haven't. He's
No, we
33.
haven't.
He's 33. I'm not one to give you advice, my friend. Even though you know I'm always talking to you about stuff, but he needs to hear the story. Yeah, I guess he'll hear it now.
Well,
I guess he may just hear it now. We'll have him watch the show.
Well, for his 33rd birthday, I wrote something to him and I narrated what happened. Yeah, it was my gratitude to him, basically.
He's not knowing that he literally saved your life. All right, I'm trying to embrace and absorb this 1 week, 1 month to die thing that you shared with me that I just found out, and then just understanding that journey from SA back home with the making a decision about having the information that you're going to die, and you've been told that you have X amount to live, and then this bombshell of this is the day that I'm supposed to die, and this is how it plays out. So you stay home and you make a decision that you have to wait for your son, and you make it to the point where your son comes home, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So now we are moving into chapter 2 of the story, I think. So now, walk me through the next chapter.
Okay, the next phase, I went back to work. Everything seemed fine. I saw my doctors in Zambia.
Recovered to a point where you were able to get back to work?
In 6 days.
From that day?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, in 6 days I went back to work. And then I went to see my doctors in Zambia. And then I told them what had happened, went through my file and everything. They said, well, okay, you've gone through the chemotherapy, we've gone through the radiotherapy, but with the way things are progressing, what you need is chemotherapy. And the chemotherapy, I had again make a decision when I wanted to start that. And then I had some very gracious friends from work. Sadly, one of them is a late Grace, I think Ambassador Grace Kawe, who just passed away, I think about a month ago. And they now CEO of Citibank, Loan Sakunda. They teamed up with me, and for 1 week we prayed every day at a synchronized time in preparation for the chemotherapy.
Okay.
So I agreed to have the chemotherapy the following year in March. I think that was in 2001. I started the chemotherapy, and I didn't know what chemotherapy was at the time. I thought chemotherapy was something where they put in a machine. I didn't realize that chemotherapy was actually an injection.
Wow.
So when I went to the hospital for the first time, I saw these syringes that were laid out in a silver tray. There were 6 of them, 4 big ones and 2 small ones. So I asked, I said, what is this? They said, are you injecting me with all of that? I said, yeah. I said, but what's that clear stuff? He said, that's water. I said, but why do you have to inject me with water? I said, because we have to clear the vein. So the chemotherapy started 1 injection, 2 injections, 3 injections, 6 injections.
So they weren't
And
using an
then
IV, were they? Were they using an IV, or they were
no,
actually injecting
no,
you with?
n-
Wow.
no, no. It seems that it's like where they put a cannula and
Okay.
they
Okay.
inject, take that out. Yeah,
Okay. So
exactly.
they put the tube in, and then they're basically
Yeah,
using injecting through
exactly.
the tube, right?
They keep pumping it. I think they keep pumping through that. And then because the chemotherapy would start about 11 o'clock in the morning, and it would take about an hour and a half. And then straight after that, I had to rush home because I knew that at 15 hours I'd start vomiting
Oh wow.
until. So I used to do it on Friday so that I leave work. So I used to leave work on Thursday, tell everybody, oh, I'll see you on Monday because tomorrow I'm going to fall sick.
Oh.
And then I get to the hospital. I start chemo on Friday at 11 o'clock. And then I rush back home. I never wanted anybody to take me to the hospital. I used to drive myself. Then I'll drive myself back home in a hurry so that I sleep because I know at 3 p.m. I'll start vomiting until Sunday. Then Monday I'm back in the office.
How was your
So
weight at
this
this
went
time?
on.
How was your weight? How was your weight at this time?
The weight didn't start fluctuating until I think the 3rd week. Because
Okay.
what I had done is I had done some research on the medicine that they were going to give me. And
Okay.
one of them causes hair loss. What I did is 2 months 2 months before the chemotherapy, I started shaving my head so that I didn't have to go through the shock. Yeah.
Okay.
So I went through that chemotherapy for 8 months. The first 4 weeks, the first 4 weeks I was going every Friday. Then the next, the first 4 weeks I was going every Friday. Then I started going every 2 weeks. Then I started going every month for a total of 8 months. Because the last day, I even told the doctor, I said, the medicine you're injecting me won't go into my body because my body is going to reject it. And for sure, the injection couldn't get into my vein. It just failed. And that was the end of the chemotherapy.
Wow.
And from that day, And from that day, I just went into remission.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
And explain to people that don't know. Explain to people that don't know about cancer what remission means.
Oh, it means that the cancerous cells had been destroyed, so there was no new growth.
Right. So the day that you were kind of articulating this thing about the medicine is just not going to go in, it's not going to go into, is literally from that day you went into remission.
Yes.
Because it's almost like your body said, I'm good now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't,
My
no more.
body, no more.
No
Because
more.
you see, the thing is that during that 8 months, it wasn't like it was. Maybe can I call it? It was like hell because chemotherapy is very, very painful. Nobody should even joke about it. Chemotherapy is very, very painful because they're basically injecting poison into your body.
Right.
So the water was there to dilute some of that medicine because what it does is that 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 poison is very corrosive. It actually burns the vein. So they inject the water to soothe it, to dilute it and protect the vein, basically. But still, my whole body turned black. The veins all turned black. My palms. I lost my beard. No, I lost hair all over except for the goatee. But I lost all the hair that I had.
Wow.
And I remember one time I was just after chemotherapy. I don't know what just went crazy. Hey, it was a very painful experience. Let me just put it that way. It was just a very painful experience.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. All right. So hearing you talk about very painful and kind of watching really your emotions and you're reliving that moment, I'm trying to weigh it against where we've still got to go in the story. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to weigh it
This,
because the next stage of the story to me is like I understand. I have never been through that. My mother, God, may her soul rest in peace, died of cancer, and walking with her through that was painful enough. But to hear you speaking and knowing where we're going in this story, it just gives me pause, for lack of better words. So let me take a step back again because I know there's more to tell. So I'll let you continue.
all right. So I basically recovered and was now planning what the next phase of my life was going to be. So I had my last session of chemotherapy in April of 2002.
Right.
And then I was planning, oh, I need to do my master's, I need to do this, I need to do that. And then suddenly I was called one day and I was told that I'd lost my job. I'm like, okay, I've just come out of chemo. I'm trying to rebuild my life and now I don't even know where to start from. So, well, they say, in good times, you've got many friends. And then I realized that I was basically standing alone. So I decided to relocate. I left Zambia, I went to South Africa. I picked up my life again, went to school, started some small scale business. Things didn't work out very well. I came back to Zambia. And the whole 4 years I was in South Africa, I never fell sick, not even once. I was
Wow.
well. I came back to Zambia and now I'm thinking, I said, okay, I'm back in Zambia. What am I supposed to be doing here? And then God planned, God designed. I got a job. I relocated to Ndola. And I guess that's the story you were talking about, the jacket, where I was going for an interview.
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
I had no clothes. I had no clothes. I had a pair of ripped jeans and I had and I had I had a jean jacket with a Union Jack on the back. And
Right.
I thought, I said, I'm supposed to go there for an interview. What am I supposed to do? And there was only my son and I at home, my youngest son. So I just grabbed his school pants and I picked up my wife's belt and I found a jacket. I don't know who it belonged to in the wardrobe. And I got my son's school shirt and tie and bolted off to the interview. I thought I was getting a temporary job for 3 months to set up the internal audit unit. But when I got the letter a month later, I found that I had a permanent job. So that's how I relocated to Ndola.
Right.
I stayed in Ndola. I was fine. And then the company that I worked for shut down. Then I relocated back to Lusaka. The following day, I got a job. I was with Ecobank, and I was fine. But then what I didn't realize was that the radiotherapy that I had left damage.
Right.
Because even the time that I was in Ndola, strangely, in South Africa, I didn't feel it that much. By the time I was in Ndola, the swelling started coming back. And then that's when he discovered that actually I developed deep vein thrombosis. Now, this deep vein thrombosis is where there are blockages in the veins. So what happens is wherever those blockages are, swellings begin because there's no constant blood flow. So the leg issue started all over again. It wasn't cancerous this time, but there was cellulitis and I can't even think of what other things were going on. So that's where the whole thing again restarted. So I was constantly in hospital, my BP constantly shooting up. But then my bones became brittle, the ones in the feet. So one day I was getting up from work, off a chair at work. I was about to have my lunch and I twisted my foot, my left foot. It was a slight pain and I forgot about it. But then the following day, I stepped on a very small stone. So what happened actually was that I had fractured the fifth, the fifth, the last toe. Now the toe has got what are called metatarsals. So what had cracked was the bone on the third metatarsal. It was still intact, but then when I stepped on that little stone, the bone separated. So when I went to the hospital, they tried to put it back together and then put the plaster of Paris. But then when they put the plaster of Paris, somehow the foot was twisted. So after 9 weeks of having the POP, when they took it out, the foot had bent, and that became its permanent position. So I started walking on my toes
wow.
instead of walking on the full foot. All right, now we're like, what's going on? So, but then they still encouraged me to keep walking on my foot, despite the fact that it wasn't in the right position. Then one day again, I'm at work and I feel this sharp pain, and I'm like, okay, I've got fractured foot, and now the right knee. I got to the hospital. They say they can't find anything wrong, but then I was in pain. I could only sleep 30 minutes a day.
Wow.
So one of the doctors thought to say there must be something in the knee. So they got an empty syringe and checked in there, pulled it out, and passed him out and said I had an abscess in the knee. So I had to go in for surgery. So now I had surgery on the right knee and the broken left foot. But then the surgery didn't work out as well as we expected. A month later, I had to go back in again. But then it didn't help much. Then it was recommended that I go and see a Chinese doctor. I don't know whether that was the best decision or the worst decision I ever made, because it became torture, if I may call it that. I used to receive 6 injections a day.
So the Chinese
At
doctor
the
was
end
in
of
Zambia.
in Zambia, yes.
Okay.
At the end of 3 months, I said enough, because I've been given 150 injections and 3,500 tablets, and I still wasn't feeling any better. So basically, I was bedridden by this time, and now that time I was still with the bank, and now we're deciding, should I go see? Should they send me to South Africa? Should they send me to India? Whatever. And then I went to see doctors at the Base Hospital here in Zambia, and they told me, say, in the state that I was in, it was not advisable for me to even go, whether it was India, South Africa, or anywhere else, because whatever it is that we're going to do was going to actually complicate matters even further. So I had to take a step back. But then I thought, how am I going to carry on with the rest of my life? Because I wasn't excruciating pain. So basically, throughout that period, I was basically living on painkillers. Every kind of painkiller you can think of. The only one that I refused to take was morphine. And then, again, sadly, while I was bedridden, then I lost my job again, because I'd been away from work for almost a year.
Right.
So now I was in a wheelchair and no job. Decisions had to be made. But that's how I basically carried on. And sometimes they say that you have to go through stuff to find out who you are. It was during that period when I was bedridden that I started editing a book.
Right.
And that was the first publication I ever did. So I lost my job in January of 2016. And in April of 2016, I had the first book published. By October of 2016, I had the second book published. By March of 2017, I had the third book published, and it became a career. I didn't look for it. Basically, it came. Well, basically,
So
found
these were
by
other
October.
people's books, though. You were just editing
These
and
were
publishing.
I was just editing. I mean, I was not an editor. I had never edited a book in my life. I just loved reading. And I
And you
thought,
love
I might as
writing.
well kill some. I said, well, I might as well just kill some time while I'm at it.
Right.
And because actually the messages that the people were writing about, or the things that people were writing about, resonated with me. So I felt I could actually do it, and that's how I did it. And now it's turned into a career. Now, everything seemed fine. I was basically really living my life now as Sydney and not as an employee. And because by that time I thought, I said, what did I love doing? I also loved baking. So, because my mother taught me how to bake when I was 9 years old. So from my kitchen, I created what I called the home baker, and I started baking cake.
I've seen
So on
those.
one hand, I was so one hand I was editing books, and then I was baking cake. The two things that I loved the most. Yeah. So in 2017, then my young sister said, "Nope, you can't continue living in Lusaka on your own. I need you to move out of there and come to live on the farm." That's how I moved to the farm.
Okay.
Then last year in April, it actually happened on the 12th of April.
I want to pause.
Uh-huh.
I want to pause just for a second, just to catch a breath. All right, because
All right.
I think that given the way this story has gone and what we started with, we actually need to give this a breath, because to me it's very overwhelming, and yet we haven't even got to the thing that overwhelmed me the most. You know what I'm saying? You have having so much of now the backstory is real heavy. So I think that where we're about to go requires just a breath for me, not for you. I think you've been really magnanimous in telling this story, but it just required a breath for me. So I'll take a breath and let you go. Okay, you're good.
All right. So April the 12th, 2019, we were preparing for our father's memorial, and we're combining it with my sisters and my brothers. So it was like 5 of them in one memorial. So it was quite a heavy load on all of us.
Right.
At the time, I still had challenges with my legs, so I was working on crutches basically, because that problem didn't go away. But I could still move around.
The broken foot and the knee issue, right?
Yes. Because now, remember, after the surgery, because what had happened was with the right leg where I had the surgery on the knee, because of the pain and the trauma that the leg went through, while I was sitting in hospital actually, and after the surgery, the leg locked at a 90-degree angle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So there was no way I could walk. So we tried everything. I went for physiotherapy, name it. It just didn't work. And then this doctor at Baker, he told me, he said, you know what? Stop all this physiotherapy that you're doing, because 1, you're wasting a lot of money. 2, you're not dealing with what the problem is. What I advise you to do is go and buy a 5 kg bag of mealie meal. Lie down on your couch, on your bed. Try and straighten out the bent leg as far as you can. Then put that 5 kg bag of mealie meal on the knee for 20 minutes. Take it off. And keep doing that for 2 hours. Put on for 20 minutes, take it off, put it on. And before I realized it, the leg started straightening out.
Really?
But then it didn't, no, it straightened out. But then the thing was, it didn't straighten out completely. So I ended up walking on my toes now on both legs.
So you
Remember, I
couldn't
was
get
walking on
you
my
couldn't get
toes.
the heel. You couldn't get the heel of your
I couldn't
feet.
get the heel. No, I couldn't get the heel on both legs. Now I could on both feet. I couldn't get the heels onto the ground, so I was walking on my toes. So when I went to South Africa in 2016, because that is where I went to have the first book published, I also went to see podiatrists and all these people who do prosthetics and orthotic, whatever. I had shoes made, special shoes made with special insoles, and then I had a brace made. Oh, I have to send you the picture of that. So that's what I would wear for me to be able to walk, even on crutches. Without that, I couldn't, because I couldn't even get my feet into normal shoes. The toes would go in, but the heel would stand outside. So the only way for me to be able to get to any place was for me to have those shoes on.
Right.
So April the 12th, while we were arranging for the memorial, we were all excited, or I don't know whether to call it excited or busy. But I felt a very sharp, I felt a sharp pain in my back. It went up my spine. And the following day, I couldn't get up. I forced myself, I went to the memorial anyway, but I came back straight and got into bed. And from that day, things just got worse. Now, what had happened was that whatever had happened on that day affected my right leg as well. The cellulitis came in as well. But then what happens with cellulitis is, as it's clearing out, it makes the skin peel off. So the skin was peeling off, and then it left 2 blisters on the ankle. I put a cream on it. I thought it would go away like it usually does. But that wound kept growing and growing and growing. I went to the Coptic hospital and I went to have a scan done. And they told me I had lost 33% of blood flow to my leg, on both legs. Now that was a shock. I was like, so what do I need to do? So they gave me whatever kind of medication they could give me. Didn't work as well as we thought it would, because the pain was just getting worse. And then the wound kept growing and growing and growing. We tried everything. And then soon the toes started darkening and hardening. That means gangrene now was setting in. That was the dry gangrene. So In late August, I went to see the doctor, and because the wound had formed a scab, but then I could feel there was something going on underneath. So when we had the scab removed, and we thought, oh, okay, there's healing that's taking place probably. Boy, boy, boy. As soon as the scab was taken off, then the wet gangrene came in.
Wow.
That wet gangrene, because the dry gangrene had been going on for close to 3 weeks to a month. But when the wet gangrene set in, it moved from the toes to the knee within 48 hours.
Wow.
Now, what wet gangrene does is it mashes everything in its path. It turns it into liquid. So the person that had been taking care of me, I told him, I said, could you please ask the doctor what I need to do next? So sent her a picture of the wound and says, this may be a bit too late, but do hurry and get here the day before yesterday. Because I didn't even realize it was gangrene, but I felt my heel was getting very, very soft, too soft. So Friday the 13th, September 2019, went to the hospital. I got to UTH at 12 o'clock. By midnight, I was in theater, and I had my first leg cut off.
This was the right leg, right, or the left leg at this time?
That was the right leg.
Right leg.
The right leg. Yeah. But now you have to remember that the right leg, despite the surgery and despite the wound that I had, it was a stronger leg compared to the left. All the walking that I was able to do was coming from the right leg. So the right leg was carrying the left. Exactly.
You're favoring the right leg, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, that surgery was it was crazy. If I may put it that way, it was because you get to a point where you can't pray. What do you say to God? Heal me? Because the time I was lying there in the waiting room, it got to a point where you're seeing your flesh liquidize, and then it's oozing out of the wound and it's dripping onto the floor. And there's nothing you can do. So what do you pray to God for? Close the wound, heal me, do what? All I wanted was the pain to stop. But yeah, so that's how I lost the first one. The surgery took about 2.5 hours. And the crazy thing was, surgeries these days, I didn't even know that's how they do it. You're actually conscious throughout the procedure. Yeah, so they inject something into your back, and basically from your waist down, you're numb.
They gave you like an epidural, right?
Yeah, something like that. They inject it into the spine. And Yeah, I went through that. And 2.5 hours later, got out of there and I didn't have a leg. Um, if I said that I was heartbroken, I would lie. I didn't feel heartbroken. I felt I had let go of something that was dead and I was holding on to.
You articulated that so eloquently. I have to find that old post, and I'll share it with our listeners and our viewers because I think I can't remember whether you articulated it after, I think immediately after the surgery when you had, when you had
It
healed a
was a
little
few
bit,
days after.
a few days
No,
after
yeah,
you
no, it
posted.
was it was
Yeah.
because I only did the first post after the second surgery. I couldn't post anything before that.
Yes. Yes. So I'll
Yeah.
share
So
that post. Right.
yeah. So when I got out of the ward, I was back in the ward. I mean, okay, fine. Yes, I did go through the post surgery pain. I mean, it feels like you're burning. I mean, it's fire when the anesthesia wears off.
Mm.
It was really, really crazy, but it was taken care of, and that was okay. And the same day, if not the following day, because I had a manuscript I was working on. I was already on my laptop and I was working anyway, so I was
Mm.
doing okay. So they took off the first bandages. It was healing very well. It healed actually very, very well. And then because I had indicated that if they took off the right leg, the left leg had to go because it was useless without the right one. But then it didn't sit very well with some doctors. We had to get through some arguments. They told me, "Oh no, we can discharge you. You can come back later." I said, "No, I'm not going home with this. This leg is totally useless."
Mm.
And it took a lot of convincing and putting forth my argument
What was that
that
argument, Sydney? What was that argument?
if I had to come back home with the one leg, if it was a perfectly normal leg, I would have very, very happily have come home.
Mm.
But this was a leg that was going to cause me even more problems because I saw even while I was in hospital, even just to go to the bathroom on that one leg was impossible. So I thought, if I can't even work it here, how am I going to work it when I'm at home? And then one of the top doctors at UTH actually came and did came to check on me, and he said, "You know what? You are saying that there's only 60% of blood flow into your leg in the right leg, in the left leg, from the knee going down, there's zero blood flow.
Wow.
The blood flow that was 60% was actually from the hip to the knee, not from the knee to the foot. So there was really no need for me to come back home with a zero blood flow leg." So, as you indicated in the beginning, yes, it was my choice to
Right.
have the second leg cut off. But then I could have stayed with it and I would still have gone back in hospital as another emergency case.
Right.
So not coming home and having it done for me was the best thing for me. It was a choice that I made.
I think, when we started this, I was talking about the choice, and I think what hit me when I read, because I remember us walking through kind of like the first one, and I remember when I saw the post of you explaining
Hmm.
just the fact that you had to make that decision, and then the way, I don't know if I'm going to use the right word, but you actually talked about freedom. You know what I mean? It was almost like you were expressing a sense of freedom and a sense of peace, and
Yeah,
like, in about losing, your legs. And I think that's what really hit me, like the way you articulated that. Now I'll find it. If you can find it before me, share it so we can share it with our
yeah. You
audience.
see,
But
the thing is this. The thing is this. Going by the backstory, we went back to 1999, right? We are in 2020. That means this has been 19 years, or is it 20 years
yeah,
of pain?
wow,
See what I mean? That's why some people don't understand how I could feel like this is freedom when I've lost my leg. This is not an experience where I was walking one day and then the following day I lost my leg.
right,
This has been 20 years in the making. Yes, I've been told I've handled this quite well. Probably I have, only because I've dealt with this over such a long period of time. So I do not minimize people's feelings about what they have lost. I I can only deal with what I know about what I am dealing with.
mm.
See what I mean?
Yes,
So
sir.
for me, it is freedom not having those legs because they caused me more pain
Right,
than anything else.
right, right, right. I think that it's hard for anybody. I
Nonetheless,
don't.
yeah, yeah, it's hard for anybody. You see, that's what I'm saying. Even if you know a relative is dying and was very, very sick, or you know that your grandfather is 120 years old and should be dead anyway, when they do die, you
Right,
still cry.
you're still mourning.
Similarly, you still mourn. But similarly, even for me, despite the fact that I went through this pain for such a long period of time, when I lost my leg, I still cried.
Right,
I, mo- I it was not something that it was not something that I I I wanted to give up without a fight. I did everything that I could to save my leg. I did everything I could. I spent all the money that I had. I saw all the doctors I thought I could see.
right.
I lost so many opportunities just to try and save my leg. That's why I look at them now and say, I probably was holding on to dead things.
That's exactly what you said on that thing. Like,
It is
I
so to
remember that.
me, it was whether it was catharsis or it was uncluttering my closet. Basically, that is what I have done.
Right,
If giving up my leg was going to give me purpose, then so shall it be.
amen,
If I'm going to
amen.
realize who I need, if I'm going to realize who I need to be through the loss of my leg, then let it be.
You just made me sit up. You just made me sit up. That there is the line of the day. If I am going to find my purpose to the loss of my legs, then so be it. That by itself, my friend, is the price of admission. because there are so many places I think we hold on to dead things. We hold on to dead thinking that they're serving us when in reality they're holding us back from our purpose.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
You know, I'm looking at the time and I realized that I could talk to you for like 2 hours. And clearly we have to come back to this is a 2-part conversation
Okay.
because I know there is more. And I know because you just hit me with some stuff the other day that just made me sit up again. So I think that the world, to me, like I said, I think you inspired this whole thing for me of ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And it's been something that I was thinking about for several months and really just trying to align, like, how do I tackle such sensitive and tough topics in other people's lives or my own life, you know? I don't see myself as necessarily having such an extraordinary story, but I think your story is a story of bravery, is a story of strength, is a story of pain. It has all the elements that need to be edited and published, maybe even by yourself, you know? And like I encouraged you, I told you, I said, you need to write this story and you need to write this story so it lives and so that it has life. And I think, you know, without trying to sound callous in my words, your legs are calling for that story. And you know me, I won't leave you alone until I see it somewhere.
Wow. We'll see.
Yeah.
My doctor has been telling me that. Says my healing process is dependent on my writing the story. I have to find somebody who can write it for me. I don't think I'll be able to write it myself. I don't know whether I'll be able to write it myself.
Just listening to you tell the story, I think that's what you need to do. You need to tell the story and just have somebody transcribe it. Because sometimes our stories are difficult for us to actually tick-tack on. You know, it's like I started a book many years.
Yeah, you see, because like right now, my spirit is vibrating. All right.
I can connect with that.
It's on a. So there's a birthing that is aching to come out of me.
Right.
Remember when I came out of, I think I did mention it. Immediately I came out of hospital on the 28th of October, 2019. The following week, I went to the Zambia Agency for Persons with Disabilities, and I told them, I said, I needed to find what needs to be done for persons with disabilities in the country. It's been a process. Last Friday, I finally managed to get the registration done for the Foundation of Persons with Disabilities. So right now, I've drawn up the constitution and I'm working out the plan. The thing is, I'm creating an enterprise that should be person with disabilities oriented in agriculture.
Right.
So how do I connect a person with disability and agriculture in the same sentence? So that's the prototype that I'm working on now.
Right.
Because I want to change the narrative of saying persons with disabilities are supposed to be associated with poverty.
Right.
So how do they get empowered? So that is the thing that I need to see birth.
Yes, sir. I think that's so critical, especially in our environment, because I come from a background where when you had a disability, you were looked at as less than and less able to. And our system does not provide the resources or the structure to assist people with disabilities to be fully functional in the economy or in society. You know, it's like a person who has difficulty walking. It's like, what are you going to end up doing? Being a beggar? You know what I mean? It's just a crazy narrative that we've done. And
so,
it's
but then
go ahead.
Because it also requires a change in mindset for persons with disabilities themselves. Because
Yes.
if they look at themselves and say that I'm disabled, therefore I can't.
Right.
Of course they will not.
Yeah, but I think that's
but then if you tell them,
yes, and I agree with you, because I think we have a culture. It's enculturated. You know, it's been. I remember, you know, being a Zambian boy myself. You know what I mean? It's an enculturation, because the people themselves. How can you get out of the mindset when everybody and everything around you tells you that you can't? You know, so we need that story. We need that narrative, because, you know, you might be able to affect the people who are our age or older who have lived in that system, but you're definitely going to affect a new generation of people. You might actually be able to affect people who have a mindset, because I think there are also people who want to see change. But Sydney, you have been a lot today. I honestly
I like that.
Yeah, I was looking for another word, but I don't have any smart dictionary words for it.
No, a lot says it all.
Yes, a lot, and you know, we've been in contact, and I've, you know my heart, and you know, I kind of say things to you directly when you share some things, but I'm going to close by telling you that you are a man amongst boys.
Wow.
And I say that from deep inside my soul. There's only one other person that I think I've shared that with, and I don't know if you're familiar with Darren Avena. And he had
I've heard the name.
Amazing story. And I always would share with him, and I would only say one line. I'd only say to him, "Just say, you're a man amongst boys." That's it. That was all I could muster. You know, you're a man amongst boys. You're a man amongst boys. You're a man amongst boys. And for you, it's the same, man. You're a man amongst boys. In a sea of boys, you stand up as a man. And hearing more than I knew about your story right now, I'm going to go through the rest of my day until we talk again, just really, like I told you, taking stock about the things that I complain about. The things that make me get great against me and make me go, you know, when in reality, there are bigger things that I could be concerned about. There are bigger worries that should take my energy. It's even in this environment that we're in America, where people are just biting at each other over politics. You know, stories like this are needed, because it brings me to what's important. You know, choosing life, which is what you did. You chose, and you could have given up. You could have given up 21 years ago. You could have given up when they told you one week. You could have given up when they told you 1 month.
But it would have been too easy. It could have been too easy.
Lots of people that have chosen that, and you chose the road less traveled, as the saying goes. And we will be better people for having witnessed and walked along with you in your story. So I look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you.
You know, I really thank you for making the time, man. I really thank you for putting up with us trying to connect.
Thank you for having me.
Figure out how to do this. I really appreciate you and what you bring. what you bring. So with that, thank you to everybody for listening in to Sydney Kasanda's real incredible story. Sydney is in Zambia, for those of you that don't know, and just an incredible, incredible man who has shown great, great bravery in the face of some insurmountable odds. So thank you, my brother. Thank you.
Good night.
The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show. The Wholehearted Men Show.